Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to teach you how to not rip your hands during the kettlebell snatch, and specifically during the drop. This is one of the most requested topics and everybody has experienced this. You do a kettlebell snatch workout, you go really hard and you just annihilate your hands and your palms are just in shreds. And today I'm going to teach you how to avoid this easily and also how to save your grip and do more reps in the process. It's important to understand that during the kettlebell snatch, the kettlebell changes orientation mid-air. In the beginning it is hanging, and at the end of the movement, when it's overhead, it is upside down. Now this may seem obvious, but this has a lot of implications for how we practice the movement, because it means that we have to be proficient at switching between the two orientations of the handle in our palm. This is how we hold the kettlebell as we are swinging it, and I call this a hook grip. As you can see, the kettlebell handle is positioned in the crook of the fingers and the kettlebell is hanging straight down. And for further reinforcement, we actually want to cover our index finger with the thumb, as you can see here. The second position is similar for a clean and a snatch, so I'm going to show you the clean now just to demonstrate. Normally in the rack position, my elbow would touch my body. I'm just keeping it away for demonstration purposes so you can see what's going on. I want you to pay attention to a couple of things. First, the handle is not in the crook of my fingers anymore. It is positioned diagonally across my palm. Secondly, my hand is not in the center anymore, but it is oriented more towards the corner of the handle. And thirdly, the lower part of my forearm provides an additional point of contact at the other lower horn, and this is going to become clear in a second. The other critical detail is that my wrist is not bent whatsoever. It is in one straight line, as if I was throwing a punch. One of the most common mistakes during the hand insertion is having the wrist bent backwards, and this places your forearm flexors in a stretch position and is going to rapidly fatigue your grip. The second most common mistake is not thrusting the hand in deep enough during the hand insertion. And you can easily see that the handle is not positioned diagonally across my palm, and there's this big gap between my forearm and the lower horn of the handle. And since I have less points of contact with the kettlebell, this is just a much less stable position. Here we have once again the correct positioning, this time already with the kettlebell overhead in what's called fixation. Now the kettlebell snatch presents us with the challenge of effectively transitioning between those two positions. And our whole thing is not gripping the kettlebell hard while it is rotating, and you can see what's going to happen right here. If you grip it hard, it's just going to rip your hands open. You do not want to do that. That's no good at all. Here's what to do instead. You want to keep a nice and relaxed grip and just seamlessly transition. During each repetition, we have to transition twice. One time on the way up during the so-called hand insertion, and once on the way down during the drop and re-grip. In this video I want to touch on how to perform the hand insertion on the way up, but I want to focus mostly on the eccentric of the movement, since this is where you're most likely to damage your hands. Here's a great drill to help with both the clean and the snatch. You're just going to do swings, and at the top of the movement you're going to open your hand and shoot it through the handle like a blade, and this is going to help you really get a feel for the two positions. As you can see, with each repetition I vary the height and distance from my body. The next drill is going to help us integrate the hand insertion into the snatch. You can think of the snatch as a three-stage rocket. The first stage is the swing. As the kettlebell starts to slow down during the swing, we go into the so-called acceleration pull. As the name implies, during the acceleration pull we use our body weight to accelerate the bell by leaning back and away, and you can see that my heel on the right side is now elevated because that leg is now light. As much as we can, we want to use our body weight and avoid pulling with the arm. As you can see, my elbow is relatively straight, although a little bit of bend is acceptable. At the top of the acceleration pull, the kettlebell should be at head level, so it's a little bit high here. And the third stage of our rocket is the hand insertion, where all we have to do is shoot our hand through like before, while shifting our body weight back to the other side. And the swing acceleration pull snatch is a great drill to help with the integration and timing of all of those elements. Next, let's talk about the eccentric or downwards portion of the movement, and this is where most of the errors that damage your hands and kill your grip occur. Starting in overhead fixation, we initiate the drop by doing three things simultaneously. We lean our body weight back in the way, we lift the heel on the side of the working arm, and we point our elbow forward. This is going to lead to the kettlebell losing its balance and falling down on its own. We do not throw the kettlebell down whatsoever. As the kettlebell is falling, keeping our body weight back in the way allows us to re-grip. The regrip is the critical transition to the crook of the fingers we talked about so much, and here you can see it is already complete. I'm thinking of keeping my arm straight, it's just slightly bent because it's relaxed, and I'm keeping my body weight back in the way until my arm makes contact with my torso. This is a critical point because this is going to allow my arm and my body to move backwards in unison as a system. And we go to finish with a nice backswing. And up again. Now let's watch that same rep one more time in slow motion. Fixation, starting to lean back, pointing the elbow forward, heel raises, keeping everything back in the way, going into the pendulum swing, and up again. Acceleration pull, hand insertion, fixation. Next, let's go over some of the most common mistakes during the drop. Mistake number one would be throwing the kettlebell straight down. So instead of turning the elbow and having the kettlebell go out and around the forearm, the lifter throws it down in one straight line, and this is going to lead to a lot of undue fatigue on your grip and increase the likelihood of ripping your hands. On the left we see a novice kettlebell lifter with less sophisticated technique. As you can see, he's throwing the bell straight down while staying completely upright. This stands in stark contrast to the lifter on the right, who is leaning back in the way, lifting the heel and turning the elbow forward, while waiting for the kettlebell to fall on its own. Mistake number two is not leaning back and bringing the hips back too early. We have established that we want to keep a relatively straight arm during the drop. Now watch what happens if I don't lean back and bring my hips back too early. The kettlebell is being pulled down by gravity. My arm and back act as a lever, and my lower back has to absorb all of that force. Needless to say, that's going to lead to rapid fatigue and potentially injury. Now if we take a look at the correct technique again, we can see that by leaning away, we use our body weight as a balance to the force of the falling kettlebell, and that way we get a very smooth trajectory and there's very little pressure on the lower back. That's all I got for today, guys. If you want to see more content like this in the future, please do me a favor and subscribe to the channel and also leave me a like. Have a great day and happy snatching!